Welcome to Genealogy Adventures. My name is Brian Sheffy.
And I'm Donya Williams. How are you doing today?
Hope you guys are having a great Sunday and post Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year wishes.
Yes, pre-Happy New Year. I hope everyone's Christmas was awesome, and I'm sleep deprived, so we're gonna ride on through this, but we good, and I'm so excited to have you guys on the show today. Today we are going to be speaking with Jonathan Deiss. He is from the organization Reclaim the Records, but he's also a genealogist. He is a board member at the Genealogical Institute on Federal Records Alumni Association. He's a director of his own researching company, Web Deiss Research, and he's a citizen archivist. And he's going to talk to us today about just what it says, reclaiming the records, trying to get access to different records that we've all had wanted to get into or couldn't get to, didn't have access to for something. And he's going to help us walk through this on what it is that they do, and maybe even give us tips on how to do that ourselves. I have one comment that I wanted, the quote that I wanted to read that Jonathan says really explains what it is that they do, from one of our listeners. Jen Lu says, this is right up my alley. I have long been irritated by what I call the Amazonation of public records by Ancestry.com and others. It took a TV miniseries, Roots, to introduce genealogy and family research to the masses and out of the elitist, money-eyed European purview. I see these pay firewalls as a form of the new Jim Crow. So I want to thank Jen for giving us that, and I want to welcome Jonathan to the show. Welcome, Jonathan. How are you?
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm well. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Awesome.
So I was going to start off, Jonathan, by saying rumor has it that you are a bit of a service record detective.
Indeed, I've requested service records for every war that we've participated in up until Vietnam. So, and I've done extensive research at all the archives facilities. Yeah, military history is one of my specialties.
So if people, our audience or people listening to the on-demand video, if they're struggling actually finding service records for their ancestors, is there information about that on your website, which we'll be posting a link to at the end of the show?
Sure. I have two websites. One called soldiersource.com. That's sort of my older site. My new site's webdiceresearch.com. Yeah, people can post questions to me, and I'll help them find solutions to their military history queries and mysteries. Yeah, they can contact me there, or they can email me at jdeiss@soldiersource.com.
Okay, great. Well, on a different matter, I may be picking you up on that because I'm finding a folder for a Buffalo Soldier relation. Doesn't seem to exist, but I know that there is one. But that's another topic.
I'm intrigued. We'll talk after the show.
For another time. And Donya, you may not know this, but Jonathan's he used to work for the DAR. Donya works for the DAR at the moment.
Really?
And yeah. I understand you were part of the team that was responsible for digitizing all those wonderful applications and resources.
Yes, I was hired in 2002 to work at the Daughters of the American Revolution National Headquarters in DC. I was on the President General's project. So I worked directly for the President General and through the library. And we basically sorted through hundreds of thousands of membership applications. I removed all the staples, all the tape, all the glue. We separated all the documents and got it all prepared for scanning. So yeah, I didn't actually do the scanning, but I did all the prep work, all the processing. I actually operated as an archival technician and a conservator for 3.5 years at the DAR, while learning genealogy and helping with
other programs. That's funny because now we're going over those same digitized applications, and if there are lines in them, and we're trying to clean them all up now. So that's
Excellent.
one of the side things that we have to do outside of the genealogy part.
Yeah, we could have a whole show on the story behind DAR's digitization process.
Oh my goodness.
We could talk about that for hours, but I got tales.
You got
We're gonna
tips.
have to get you back for that one.
I got tales to tell from the DAR, but another day.
Yes. Thank you so much for that work. So for our audience members who aren't familiar with Reclaim the Records, I know some are and some
Yeah.
aren't. Can you tell us a little bit about how that organization came into being and what its kind of core mission statement is?
Yeah, Reclaim the Records. We are an officially recognized nonprofit, 501(c) nonprofit, federal government plus several states. We're not in every state yet, but we're getting there. Yeah, our founder, Brooke Schreier-Gans, is a genealogist by hobby and had worked in the tech industry, but was a stay-at-home mom trying to do research and was frustrated that she wasn't able to get access to records that she thought should be freely and publicly available. So she started requesting the records and getting hostile responses from archives and records managers and record centers and vital records people. And so she decided to use the Freedom of Information Act, which is a federal law passed in the 70s, letting citizens gain access to federal documents that are not archival in nature. Many of the states, almost all of them, I believe, have a FOIA or FOIL program, what they call Freedom of Information Law or Freedom of Information Act. And so she basically utilized those laws to request records and not just say, I want to see my grandpa's record or I want to see grandma's record. I want to see everyone's record. I want to see all the records. And so that's how it started. She started requesting entire data sets. And we have been, I think we've been 100% successful at this point. We've never actually lost a Freedom of Information Act case at this point. So that's how we started. Brooke doing it out of her kitchen. But eventually she was gaining traction and she needed help. So she called upon me because I'm an expert for the National Archives records. And all of our other board members are experts in their individual fields. Some of them come from working at the large tech companies. Some of them are, Megan Smolyanek does research on Defense Department MIAs. We all have our own little personal genealogy mission, but we come together for this one larger overarching mission, which is to liberate records from bondage and make records available to people who cannot afford to jump through the hoops that the commercialization of records and capitalism has put in place. The system we have now, where you have to go to a third party to get access to government documents, is a paradigm we're trying to turn on its head. We're trying to change that completely and make it so that public records are publicly accessible to everyone, regardless of their economic position.
And again, I guess that's going to depend a lot on how these companies have set up their business models, because I'm sitting here listening to you speak and I'm thinking, I know that Family Search doesn't have the kind of depth of records in certain instances, like census records, the federal ones, that Ancestry does. But Family Search has a huge, just innumerable data sets crammed full of digitized versions of documents,
Right.
and it's free. All you have to do is sign up for it, but to sign up for Family Search is free. So I guess what I'm thinking is, how can Family Search financially make those records free, but Ancestry feels like it has to charge?
Well, Family Search has the backing of a large religious organization. Mm-hmm. They have the backing of people who are willing to work for them for no wages. Mm-hmm. People that decide to go copy records as their mission for LDS service. And I believe they have a system set up where they've worked this out, and it seems to be working for them. They seem to be able to get records worldwide with very little investment. So they don't need to make the records commercially available through a subscription, because they're not really trying to recover cash. Ancestry, on the other hand, set themselves up like a genealogy version of LexisNexis, and they started, sequestering records behind their paywall. It's a business model that's been very fruitful. Everybody wants to start their own charge for records company, and you see a new one come up every 6 months. Some of them stick around, some of them become acquired by other companies, and some of them fail. But in large part, that's the playing field right now. I have records, and you're going to pay me for them. We don't think that that's a viable business model or good for the citizenry. And so, we want to kind of change the playing field. Family Search is a unique situation. If they didn't have the backing of their funding source, then they would probably be charging for records, or they probably wouldn't be there at all. Their business model is unique. And we also believe that despite the fact that Family Search does very good things, some of the records are actually not accessible unless you're a member of the church or you actually go to one of their churches. And so we don't feel like you should have to go to a church to get records. You shouldn't have to go to a pay service to get records. You should be able to go to your own government to get records. And we'd like to compel the governments to provide the records or give them to us and we'll provide them for free.
So basically, when you were talking about Family Search, here in the DC area, you have the Mormon church. We could actually go to that church and do some research there. Okay. All right.
Yeah,
and
the family
this
history centers are closed right now, but yeah, you can do the parking lot angel thing that's going on right now,
Okay.
Yeah.
But so why are they able to do this, given the fact that we have this law, the Freedom of Information Act? Why are they even able to do something like that, to hold on to records and charge people for it?
Family Search and Ancestry and the companies that utilize those models, they've spent a lot of time and energy influencing the vital record system in the country, getting to know every records manager at every archive and little municipal government's record center in the country. Every clerk in the country has their LDS people that come in, and they know them. They're in every courthouse and they're in every record center throughout the country and the world. And so they've basically set this up where they're the ones that are now trusted by the records managers and the archival professionals. Ancestry provides things like professional development grants for archivists and librarians. They give them money. And so they're always going to be the first choice as a vendor or first choice as the place to go to get records copied. They've made themselves ubiquitous in the situation where they're just everywhere. And they're the only ones that have been in the system for many years. And so unfortunately, that's just the system that's been in place. It's not equitable to the public. It doesn't really serve the public interest. It serves the interest of business and capitalism, which wants to make money off public property.
Wow.
I mean, there is a service to be offered. They index the records. They put the records on their own server. So you should definitely have to pay some kind of fee to access somebody else's server or access somebody else's index. But do you need the index? And should the server be public? That's what we're trying to change. There's nothing wrong with the business model, but it's, it is a business model. It's not a public records model.
I know Family Search because I actually have done this before. They actually allow people to volunteer to index for them. And I mean, I've done some indexing for them a few times. Right. And anybody can do it. You go on their site, you can find out more information about it.
Yeah, we've worked with Family Search. I mean, actually Family Search is one of our partners. I am not going to hold back my criticism of things I don't agree with. But however, Family Search has been very good to us. We've partnered with Family Search to get records copied. In fact, when we wanted to partner with the National Archives, and after negotiating with them for about a year, it came to what it came down to is they didn't have room for us in any of their facilities. So they asked us to partner with a third party. So to get a series of National Archives records copied, we had to actually go to Family Search, and they had to act as our vendor. That's not a viable model for, and it's not going to be a continually sustainable model of research. We shouldn't have to go to a third party to access government records. And so even the National Archives made us do that. So this system is it's been in place for so long, and it's not just, but it just seems to be the way business is conducted, and we think it needs to change. So we're slowly changing it. Things are changing.
The way that you describe it, it just makes me think of a very kind of patriarchal,
I mean, really
patriarchal
Oh,
kind
yeah.
of system.
It is, exactly.
crazy.
Yeah, yeah.
And I guess before I move off to the next question, kind of staying on this, I mean, are the big players in the field, are they engaging with Reclaim the Records, or is there resistance? I mean,
there's some hostility, but mostly there's radio silence. They generally don't comment on us at all. Privately, we've received a little bit of pushback. And so they also push back to us through these organizations, telling the organizations, don't deal with Reclaim the Records. We're going to give you a better deal. But I don't want to accuse them of anything illegal or unethical. It's business. That's how business in America is conducted. So they're not doing anything that I wouldn't expect them to do. However, we just want business out of this business. Public records should not be commercially available, period. So despite the fact that they might not be doing anything wrong legally, it's just not sustainable. It's not viable for the public to have to pay a third party to get access to their own records about them, you know?
And well, I would go one step further to say, especially in a time when as a country, we're very divided and kind of at each other's throats, if you want everyone who's here, everyone who's a citizen to actually feel like they have an attachment to America, you do that through genealogy. You do that through learning about your family history and then history in a wider context. And then you have the records.
Right.
That kind of covered the drier parts of that story, but they're still really important.
And they back up your find.
Exactly.
They definitely back up your find.
They dispel myth. They make things fairer. They make things more equitable. When people know the truth, we're all on the same playing field. We're all on the same level playing field when we have the same information.
It's more understand. You understand it better. I mean, that's one of the things that I've always said that genealogy has done for me while I was in high school or junior high or what have you. I think y'all call it middle school nowadays, but what have you. But when I was in school, and we were learning history, I always felt like something was missing. I didn't find that missing part until I started doing genealogical research. And it was me. I was missing. What we did as African Americans, that little part that was taken out that didn't seem important, when in actuality, it made everything make sense once, once I started to see it, and then to have the records to back it up. God, that was like getting some.
I think the events of this year and, Black Lives Matter movement, all the things going on clearly indicate that people need access to the truth.
Yep.
I mean, we've all been stuck at home. Most people have been stuck at home for the last practically a year now. And think of all the research people could be doing online right now if records were free. They could be actually utilizing real documentary evidence to back up their positions, their beliefs, their feelings, their accusations of Jim Crow. I mean, the fact that we've never really dispelled Jim Crow, all you got to do is read the documents. It's right there. But documents aren't freely available to people, If you really want to dispel Jim Crow, start telling the truth.
Right.
Let people read their own records. Let them tell their own story. Let them have their own narrative, and just let the truth get out there. Stop trying to shape the narrative by saying these records are going to be available, these records aren't. We already know enough about white people and manifest destiny. The story's done. It's been told. Now it needs to be retold with the rest of the people in it. I don't need to hear that story anymore. I know it already.
That's very deep what you just said.
I'm tired of hearing that story. Frankly, it's embarrassing.
Yeah. Here's the thing. So let me ask you this: for people who have personal wills, do you guys help with getting that, or like with wills, inventory information, those kinds of things, or do you go to private private places that hold those kind of records, or even small archives? Do you go to those places and help? Like, can someone come and ask you to help get some of these records out
We
of
would
there?
love it if someone came to ask us for help, but
I'll
normally
be right
nobody
there.
comes to us. No, people don't generally come to us except to tell us, I went to this archive and I had a problem. And then we investigate. And if we find out that the problem is a legal issue, we'll go after it.
Okay.
But people have to bring problems to us. There's so many, we're in so many different things right now. We're really focused on a number of issues right now, but we need to expand our vision. We're really looking for people to bring us information about records that they're having trouble getting, particularly for underserved communities. My special interest is Native American records. So I've been working hard with my Native American allies and my Native American friends to identify records that we're going to go after to make their lives easier. I would ask the same of my African American friends. Please come to us and tell us where you're having trouble finding records. What records are meaningful to you? What are going to help you tell your story? And how can we help you get those records available? Yeah, we'll work with if we find a problem in a small municipal archive, a library, or a record center, yeah, we'll go after it. We'll utilize whatever legal means we have. I mean, we have lawyers, we have money, and we have the will and desire to go and rectify these situations. But we need help because our board is pale. We need assistance we need people to help us. We need Black folks to show us what to do.
Hey.
Show us where these records are, and we'll harness our energy to fight for those records. But these are things that, frankly, to be very honest, I can only go so deep into it because I don't know what's important to certain individual people or in their family. So I'm asking for assistance from, anybody who thinks they want to tell me something.
We will definitely talk after this is over.
We want to, our board is interested in talking to people. We want people to sort of submit what we call like a record survey. You can go to our website and you can get information on what we consider pertinent for a record survey. And we'd ask you to evaluate certain record sets. Is this set of records, is it publicly available? Is it only on microfilm? Is there only one copy? Do I have to go to some grungy, dirty little place to look at it? Is the staff making it accessible? Are they charging, outrageous fees? Anything that makes it difficult to get at records, that's what we're really fighting for,
Okay.
I would say to our audience, having just heard what Jonathan said, if you feel that pertains to you, if you send an email to Danya and I, will be happy to kind of gather them all together and send them on. Please stay on with us after the show, because can definitely float some suggestions to you.
Yes.
And I actually have one. It's a perfect example of what you just said. Researching people who were sold in the biggest slave auction in America, the earlier part of the stories is involved in their Enslavers probate records, which exists. They're held in Philadelphia. And to say that it has been a nightmare trying to get those documents, which we have.
I've done research in Philly, I know.
It's been a nightmare. So happy to talk to you about that. The question that I had, and this is all leading up to the next question that I had. So let's say I'm Joe Blogs researcher, and my state is either proposing to change laws about access, or is just making it really difficult to access records. How would I go about contacting you, and kind of what is the process once I have contacted you?
Well, yeah, you can reach out to us through our website, our Twitter feed. We monitor all of our social media very closely, so you can contact us anonymously that way, or you can send me an email personally. I have a Reclaim the Records email address as well. I'm John Deiss at reclaimtherecords.org. You can email me. Everything you say is confidential. We won't tell anyone what you've said. So if you work at a record center and want to tell on somebody, let us know. But if you, if you're finding that you want to let us know about records, go to our site, get information about what we'd like to see in a record survey, and then let us know what you know. We're not even asking you to be investigators or private eyes, but if you do have information, share it with us. We will investigate on our own. We have contacts throughout the archival, records management, genealogical community. We have our fingers in a lot of pies, and so we can get a lot of information. So just let us know where your trouble areas are, and we'll look into it. If there's, I can't promise that we'll be able to do anything. It really depends on what the laws are in the area where the records are held. Every municipal area and every state has its own laws about archives and records, and so it just really depends what's possible. If we think we can make a difference, we'll discuss it and certainly consider going after it. We can't do everything, but we can certainly do a lot.
If I remember correctly, the Reclaim the Records website, there's a lot of information at the state level. I believe there's a drop-down menu.
Correct.
Click on the state, you can see what's
Right.
Right.
what's pending.
Right. So you can see where we've been involved so far. We've been involved mostly with the states, but we're in negotiation with the National Archives right now because we submitted a huge FOIA request to them.
Yeah, that was one of the things that we saw, and you guys were like, yeah, we're coming for you, so you get ready, basically.
They're ready.
Yeah, I mean, it was like, get ready because we're
They've already
coming
been
for you.
talking. It's not even, the potential of court action is not even there yet, and they're already talking to us. So they want this to work. They just don't know how it would work.
Okay. So staying kind of like on this, one guy had asked the question. They said, Evans said, I can't pronounce your first name. I don't want to mess it up, so I'm just saying Evans. It says, I know of an individual who has his ancestorship manifest of enslaved Africans during the Middle Passage. Is there any way they can be compelled to digitize them so we can research our enslaved ancestors? Because that right there, what this person just said, that's one of our problems. Across the board for African Americans, that is literally one of our problems.
So is he saying that this record's held by a private person?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, there's no law to compel a person who's a collector or a possessor of a certain artifact or document. There's nothing to compel them besides moral weight to do anything. However, there isn't any reason why they couldn't call Reclaim the Records and say, I have a record, will you help us digitize it? We will help them. I'll drive over there and photograph it. You know what I mean?
So basically getting them, saying to them, hey, you can get this company to help you digitize your stuff. This person can go to that private owner and do that.
It depends on what the record is, of course. If it has our mission is basically right now, it has to have a genealogy connection. That's our mission statement.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going after just anything. It has to have a genealogy connection.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a very broad, those are very broad connections. A really good genealogist can squeeze a genealogical fact out of almost anything.
Yeah.
So that being said, if somebody makes a compelling argument to us that there's valuable genealogical records that we could easily just go copy because the person that possesses them doesn't have the resources to do so, then we can maybe work something out. For instance, recently we won a case against the city of Yonkers in New York to get some of their vital records. And the deal was that we had to copy them ourselves. So I just drove up there and did it. Not a big deal. You know, I just Reclaim paid for my my travel and costs. But otherwise I did it for nothing. I just went up there and photographed them. It's that easy. Digitization's not magic. It's really easy, actually.
And I think part of the problem is people who have no knowledge or interest in genealogy are looking at old documents and things and just assuming, oh, well, this won't be meaningful to anyone. Where even a slave ship log that may not have named individual Africans, but will tell you about the Africans who were aboard that ship. To a trained genealogist who knows how to ferret and tease out information from seemingly bland things.
Yeah.
You know, I think that there's a lot of missed opportunities. And I wish that people would kind of admit that they don't know what, maybe it's one of those things you don't know what you don't know until you realize you don't know it.
Just like there's no bad question, there's no bad record.
It really isn't. It really,
All
I
records
think,
are good. It depends.
yeah,
You
I
know,
was
what's in
trying
it.
to
Right?
understand exactly what this one person was saying. Charlotte Chips, she says, never enough info on manifest destiny. My ancestors are incredibly important and interesting. I like the topics here, but it seems you have made judgment about what is important and the truth. I am having some issues understanding what it is she's saying we're
It's a
judging.
it's a defensive position when somebody says, well, all the research you've done in the story, you're telling me I'm not interested in it.
Hmm.
You know, here, look, all of our ancestors are compelling, but the thing is that how many times do I need to hear the same story? You know, I know it already, and I know that's compelling for other people. So tell the story to your relatives, tell the story to your descendants. But to tell you the truth, America doesn't need more stories that leave out everybody except some pioneer with an axe and a musket. You know, it's
Amen.
just in a horse and, you know, saving the day and fighting Indians, and, you know, that story's just over.
And it's
It's
much more
over.
interesting to add everybody.
Just add the truth.
Yeah.
These
Well,
stories are just, they're so, I'm sorry, it's like watching a 1950s movie about like a Western, you know. I'm you know, I could talk about my colonial ancestors. Sure, I could talk about them all day. They did all kinds of great stuff, but so did many other people. And let's talk about the people that stories haven't been told yet.
and again, I mean, I couldn't agree. Obviously, I couldn't agree more. It was documents, specifically American Revolution documents that told me and taught me that there were Chinese Americans who
Mhm.
supported the American Revolution. There were women who supported the American, who were part of the American Revolution. There were Muslims who technically are American patriots because
Mhm.
they either supported or fought for the American side in the American Revolution, and it was documents.
Mhm.
Those weren't even documents I was looking for. I was looking for someone else's kind of application in history, and I'm like, get out. I'm like something. I'm not going to say it was a very Chinese name, and I'm like, really? And I started, and then I forgot the research that I was meant to be doing, and I got dug into his story because it
Mhm.
never even occurred to me that anyone
Yeah.
other than maybe white people and free people of color
Yeah.
fought the American Revolution.
Yeah. Something that the caller said made me think. I mean, not the caller. I'm sorry, the person who posted the last question, about who, you know, what's the truth and why is, you know, sure, the stories about white people are true, but a lot of the context is gone. I mean, yeah, sure, the person bought 160 acres and homesteaded and did all this stuff, but what about the rest of it? You know, there's a lot more there than just, you know, my ancestor built a log cabin and conquered the West, and, you know, like was a colonial official and came on Mayflower and blah 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 blah. There's a lot more going on than these tired old stories that get told over and over again. You know, I mean,
That
I
actually fits with what Evans is saying. He said that the wolf holder, because the person the question before the one I just read, from Evans, that asked about getting the private
mhm,
document scan, he said it's the wolf holder of records will not make them public because they engaged in illegal slave trading after 1808 until 1820. So this is why this person
yeah,
won't make them public. But it fits into what you're saying. It's more to the story. So when you're sitting here and you're saying, okay, yes, my ancestor built this, and that, but was it your ancestor directed somebody to
yeah.
build?
They didn't do it alone.
Right. They
Yeah, I mean,
directed
nobody did it
somebody.
alone. This idea that this bootstrap idea is just, it's ridiculous.
Yep. So
Nobody was
I feel
alone
you.
here. Nobody was alone. And if you were, we would never know in anyways because you were alone. I mean, that's, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I don't think it's not realistic. Yeah, we were all part of a team. Everybody there was, believe me, what we're upset about in America is the fact that back then the team hierarchy was skewed. We're all still on a team. We all work together. It's just the team back then was top heavy. It was all leadership, and nobody talked about the team.
That's a
you
really
know.
good analogy. Now you've made me think about it. I'm going to use that in a conference, except I'm going to use cheerleaders because you always focus at the cheerleader who's at the top, the one that they all kind of lift,
Hmm.
and all the other ones underneath her who, if she wouldn't be in the
Yeah,
air, they weren't there.
That's right.
They kind of get left out of the story. It's
yeah. We always talk about the coach and the quarterback and the you know, or the great pitcher or the batter or the heavy hitter, and we, you know, but he can't do anything without all the other people that are there, you know. So
Yeah, that's awesome.
And don't worry, I'll give you a credit when I use the analogy.
it's also the inherited nature and the legacy of American biography. It's the way we've done things. We tell a story in a certain way, and we're all just used to it and accustomed to it. It works for business. It works for books. It works for David McCullough. It works for everybody that tells a story a certain way. You know, the thing is, the narrative now needs to change. I mean, the you know, my father was a historian and an archivist. And he, you know, he taught me a lot. Just living with him, I learned a lot about history. People that lived before us were not dumb. That was a big one. You got to give more credit to the people that lived before us. They had a lot more difficult time doing things than we do. You know, I mean, I have respect for the people that lived before us, but there's so many of them whose stories just are never going to get told. You know, and who do we just? How are we to decide what was important? That's the thing. We're putting our modern biases on their activity. We're analyzing their activity with a modern bias and picking and choosing what we think is important.
Right. And then when people are looking at the manifest, if you don't know what you're looking for, because the one thing that people don't understand, you have, as far as African American genealogy is concerned, we have to do things a little bit different. Yes, we go through the normal stuff, the census records, the, you know, the birth records and death records and things like that. But we have to take other things like newspapers, and newspapers are a big deal to African Americans as far as research is concerned. I mean, it's a huge deal because it directs us, it guides us to the next person that we need to go to, or how, or who else is a part of our family that we didn't know, listing names that we didn't know about, or something to that nature. So we have to look at things outside of the box. So what you see on a manifest as not a lot of information, it is loads of information for us. It is actually a load of information. Okay, it might, like Brian said, it may not drop a name, but it gives an idea of what that person was going through, what was going on, where they were, the guidance, an age number or something that makes a difference for us.
The port that the ship sailed out of. Because
Yes.
then you can go to whatever African port, the country that port was in, contact their archivist. Do you have any information about this captain who sailed this ship on this date? You don't have to tell them where it was going to because they probably wouldn't know, but that's enough information for them to hit their archives.
Oh yeah.
Say, oh, Captain John Smith on the sloop Maria and Anna. Oh yeah, 1754. Got it.
Yeah.
The Africans were taken from these 5 villages. You already have more information than what you than you started with.
Agreed.
So I would imagine in your work there are some records that you can't, for legal reasons, you can't get a hold of. And I lost the person's message, but I did see something about adoption. Are there any limitations on adoption records?
Every state has its own law. Some are far more restrictive than others. I'm not an adoption specialist, but we have worked with people that are combating difficult adoption laws. We did work with one adoption issue. I wasn't terribly familiar with it. Brooke was working with that. So look on our site for more information about that. But that's a very complicated issue because the laws are usually very restrictive, and they're not, and they're exempt from FOIA. A lot of these records are exempt from the Freedom of Information Act process, or because of PII, personally identifiable information rules and privacy rules, they would have to redact the document so heavily that it might not be useful.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? You might know a document exists, but it would be all blacked out. So you wouldn't really have much. I mean, but then again, maybe you will be able to get a clue from it. So it's worth trying, but these are issues where going after entire record sets would be very difficult. It would be a very long, protracted court case, and sometimes it would be a Pyrrhic victory, meaning that it would take so long to get the records released to us that we might never see them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, because
There's a limit to what the governments can do. You know, we can ask for big stuff, but there's only so much they can actually give us at once, just because of just physical, logistical limitations. You know?
No, and I get that, because even if I'm thinking, someone's old psychiatric file, I mean, it could be like
yeah.
a 125-year-old file that's still privileged information. While it's frustrating for me because I want to know who signed that person in, knowing that it was a family member, and to be able to prove that, I have to respect that that's confidential.
Well, this has actually come up. Yeah, there's I'm sorry to interrupt, but when you said psychiatric, there's records at the National Archives about the government's insane asylum, St. Elizabeth's Hospital. We all know the infamous St. Elizabeth's Hospital from the DC area.
Yeah.
Those records are at the National Archives, and they're open.
What?
Really?
Up until a certain date. Now, after a certain date, they need to be reviewed and redacted, but up to a certain point, they're just open. Yeah. It just really depends on what the law is in that area. The federal government doesn't have a law. So there's also an instance where the federal government inherited a very large collection of vital records from the District of Columbia. And I wanted to see them. And the archive said, no, they're restricted. And I said, nuh-uh, they're federal records. They said, but the DC law, I said, they're federal records. And so even though DC has a restriction on their death records, the archives had to let me see their collection because they had accessioned it. So the law, knowing the law about adoption or something like that in your area is so important, because it's different everywhere. There's loopholes in different places, and that's something that Reclaim is sort of getting into. But we have to approach this slowly and carefully, because there's a lot of potholes, and I wouldn't say it's a minefield, but it's definitely lots of craters and places to get lost, in the adoption world. It's very complicated.
And I would imagine prison records would be the same. That those would also not be necessarily easy to get a hold of.
Well, that's also a thing where it's going to be a PII issue. Once the privacy restriction is ended, or the embargo on privacy is over after a certain amount of years, usually it's like 62 or 72. In some places it's like 120. But it just depends on what the embargo is. And then when that's over, the record can become archival, or the state decides to destroy it. And a lot of times they just dispose of the records. They just throw them out. They throw away probably 95% of the records that are created. So there's a chance that things like prison records wouldn't be considered significant. The court record of the person being convicted, yes, but the actual prison records, a lot of times they just would get rid of them.
So what's the difference between so what's the difference between a prison record and then showing the count of prisoners in a census record? Because it's giving more information as to what they did.
A prison record might be, like equivalent to like a personnel file or a medical case file with information that's exceedingly sensitive that we don't usually look at on a person until they're long dead. That's kind of a custom we have, but you know how it is. I mean, it just really depends on what the record is and what you need it for. What if you're an investigator doing research on a person, like you need to research a person right now? You'd need that information, But genealogists, I don't know. I'm not saying genealogists don't need all the information. It's just that records managers often make decisions about records before we even know they exist,
Well, I would have thought the same thing about insurance policies until I started doing research on enslaved ancestors who were insured. And it was a bizarre, surreal experience actually looking at those documents. Those pretty much are, the insurance documents are by and large kind of straightforward to get, the old ones are. But in terms of groups of records, is there anything that reclaiming the records has found difficult as a class of records to get a hold of?
The adoption records are definitely difficult. Vital records have been exceedingly difficult. That's why we focused our efforts on that topic. State vital records laws are sometimes exceedingly restrictive, and they want to charge ridiculous fees. So we've focused on that. But yeah, we found that those have been the most difficult record sets in the country to obtain as entire sets. you know, as the whole data set. So that's what we've gone after. They seem to be the most difficult. There seems to be I wouldn't say a corruption, but there's sort of an old boys network and a business as usual thing going on with vital records in America. So it's kind of creepy. I don't want to make any direct accusations, but there's a network of people that make the records restricted so that they can utilize them for their own purposes.
That's terrible.
Well,
Private industry and public industry in conjunction.
That's terrible. That's terrible.
Yeah,
well,
true though.
I can't say that I'm entirely shocked by that.
No,
The
not at
vital
all.
record, the vital records and public record system in America is broken. It's broken.
Which again, I just find that's such a real shame. Because
Yeah, I mean, it's a hacker can get all my information out of an account I have, but I'm not allowed to request my own records from the government. Mm-hmm. Right?
Or your
so how can I have I can't even have access to my own data, but some crook on the dark web does, or on the black market does. But I don't. I can't even have access to my own records. I have to pay ransomware to a genealogy company to get access to government documents. That's what I look at. I look at it as ransomware. You know, when I'm going to Ancestry or some other company, I'm basically paying a ransom to get a document that they're holding in jail. You know, if I want to visit the record, I have to pay a fee. Well, those records were created by, you know, and they try to they've even tried to copyright government records, and they've been proved they can't do that. There's been a precedent, so I believe that they simply cannot copyright the records they've copied from the government. They tried though.
The real shame of it is, you know, just using an example, I was living in England, and it happened for years. I was 33 years old, probably doing genealogy for about 18 months to 2 years. That's when I felt like I was an American. I had roots. Not only did I have roots, I found out how far back those roots went. And that was all through records. And that was a real kind of, and I know it's going to sound mad probably to a lot of people, because I mean, I was born in America. I spent the first 21 years of my life living in America. Never felt like this was my country, or, you know, as Donnie was saying so eloquently before, so ignorant about so much of the history. 30-something years old, living in another country. That was when I became an American. Felt like I actually am an American. And, you know, those records, and getting those records in people's hands and telling those stories and then finding out about their ancestors through these records. I mean, that's just such a powerful thing. And, you know, maybe I'm being naive, and, you know, Donnie says this a lot on the shows as well. We really believe that genealogy is something that can bring people from vastly different backgrounds and life experiences together.
It's a transformative experience for many people, and you're right. It's underrated for its ability to foster relationships across international boundaries and across cultures and across, you know, all kinds of different, you know, all the different fences that are to divide us. You know, genealogy makes it clear that we're all related in some way, and in many respects, in America, we're related in ways that a lot of us really never knew. You know, I've not done the DNA journey yet. I'm getting ready to do it now, but I'm excited about what might come up. I hope there's some goodies in there. You know, we'll see.
It will be DNA. It's a mess.
I know. I thought I knew it all from the paper record, but I'm just waiting to see what surprises Grandpa and Grandma were up to, or what was going on, you know, back in the older days. But we'll see. We'll see. I don't think there's any surprises in my immediate family, but I don't know. I hope not. We'll see.
So
but I hopefully find some new cousins.
You will. You'll definitely get.
That you definitely will. I'm trying to think of the best way to ask you this question. And if you don't want to answer it, I will respect that.
I'll answer anything.
Has the organization Reclaim the Records, have you found that there's a particular states that have been difficult to deal with? Or if you don't want to name states.
Oh no, New York.
Regions of the
state of New York.
Oh, okay.
The Empire State, the great state of New York. I have a lot of respect for New York. I'm married to a New Yorker, so I got to be careful here. My wife just said, "Go, John." She said, "Go for it." So, okay. So New York is egregious in their violations of their own records laws, of their idea that they own the records that they curate. And there's just so many different archives and records centers just in the city of New York. It's ridiculous. So Brooke knows more about this than I do because she's a New Yorker. She was born in New York and has done New York research for years. I'm just now getting into it because I have very little family from New York after like 1820. But believe me, New York research before 1820 is just as difficult. So New York has been the most difficult state that has been violating their own rules for years. It's just old boys network, business as usual, BS. But we've been blasting through it. We've not lost one case against them. They keep reoffending. The court chastises them and fines them, and then they do it again. They find another way to open up another loophole and do some other crafty little scheme to try to make money off records. It's very clear that their budget problems, they have very clear budget problems, and that's why they're charging for records. But that's not my problem. My problem is that those records should be freely available, and they shouldn't have anything to do with charging for it. It shouldn't even be part of their job. They should be dealing with the conducting the business of the records managers of their state and not trying to make a couple bucks off a bunch of naive genealogists who are sitting at home clicking on links to try to find records. It's a cheat, it's a scam, and it's got to end. So yeah, New York's the worst. New York's the worst. The worst.
Wow.
There might be a worse state, but we haven't found it yet. California is not easy. Illinois is going to be a very big challenge. We're going after Illinois. Actually, the most aggravating state, maybe not the most difficult, but the most aggravating has been the state of Missouri. I'm a St. Louis native, so I'm from Missouri, and I know how stubborn people there can be, but their state government was ridiculous. They got chastised by the judge so harshly that the head records manager of their state, I don't know if he's a state archivist or state librarian, he had to quit. So,
so you haven't done South Carolina?
I don't think we've touched South Carolina. If anybody knows something in South Carolina, come talk to us, please.
We
come
will.
Talk to us, please. We'd love to have you talk to the board. Anybody who wants to talk to us about this stuff, we'd love to have you come talk to the board or write us a letter or whatever. Maybe call me anonymously if you want. I'll give my phone number privately to anybody who wants to email me or whatever. I'll provide it to a third party if somebody wants to call me, if somebody wants to tell me something. I'm happy to talk to anybody. We'll figure out a way to get a hold of me. I won't give up my number here so my wife doesn't get too scared that people are going to call us. But yeah, no, we'll go after them if we can, if it's possible.
If it's possible.
If it's possible and it's legally feasible, if we have a good sense we'll win. We like to win, so we want to make sure that we can win these cases, and we have the money. We actually have received a very large donation this year. We're very grateful to that patron, but it's going to allow us to do a lot.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and since probably in the last 3 months, we've raised close to $20,000 or $30,000. So we're this is where we put our money. We pay lawyers. We'll go after anybody who's failing to meet their obligation as a public servant.
And what I was remiss in saying is your website actually has record sets.
Indeed. Yeah, we don't want to be a records provider per se. We'll put our records on an internet archive. Mm-hmm. But we built 3 separate websites for different records we acquired. Built a website for the VA Master Index. Brooke built 2 websites for the Missouri records we acquired. So we do have URLs that you can link off of our website that are like MissouriRecords.org or something. I can't remember exactly what it says. And there's also one for the VA Master Index, I believe, which we got from the government. That's the Veterans Administration Master Index is the record set we got in partnership with Family Search through the archives.
So are you guys going for Ancestry? Because I have people up here that are talking about Ancestry and they feel like Ancestry is holding back stuff.
Frankly, there's nothing we can do to go against a private corporation. They can do whatever they want. There's no legal recourse all we can do is compel the governments to give their records out for free and not deal with Ancestry anymore. That's what that's the only thing we can do. Legally, we hope to compel the governments, the federal government and the state governments, to change their policy so that they no longer go to third-party private vendors to copy records that they should be giving out for free. Do it yourself, or find a nonprofit organization to work with that serves the public interest. Ancestry, unfortunately, is a business, and it doesn't serve the public interest. It serves the interest of its shareholders, period.
I am loving you.
I love you too. You want to hear about what we're doing to the National Archives real quick before we're done?
Oh, please.
Yeah. So we filed a Freedom of Information Act request against the National Archives for them to release all of the documents that they should have received or have received from their partners, Ancestry, Fold3, Family Search, and a number of other private corporations that have made these partnership deals with the National Archives, and we're supposed to give records back to the archives after they digitize them. This process has never been completed. It's never worked out to anyone's satisfaction. We're asking the archives to release every record that they've received from a partner, and release the entire data set to us as a unit. And so they want to fulfill this request. It's going to cost over $1 million and could perhaps take a decade. So we're trying to negotiate a way to make this cost effective to the public, but still make sure everybody gets what they need. So it looks like we're going to have a cooperative arrangement, but it still could go to court. There's always a possibility that they could balk at the last minute and decide not to negotiate anymore and walk away, and then we go to court. But we've asked them to turn over basically everything the Ancestry scanned for them, everything that all the partners have scanned for them. We want those copies in the Internet Archive now.
Wow.
Because the archives can't even put them in their own catalog. So we want that stuff given to us immediately. We know it can't be immediately. We know that COVID's in the way, but as soon as this is out of the way, this is going to happen. We're going to have a little sparring match with the archives and see what we can do. Right now, it's just sparring. It's fun sparring. We're literally just sparring and testing out our reflexes with each other. But I think they want to give us the records, and it's just what's it going to cost and whether their general counsel agrees. It's always down to the lawyers really when it comes to it. So we'll see. But we're talking with them and they're talking back.
Well, we
That's
definitely have a couple of people on here that's going to need to, talk to you. I have one, Evans again. They asked about birth records, 1899 Illinois, and death records in Kansas, 1920. Where are they? So I guess they need to come to you.
We're looking at Illinois. We're looking at Illinois right now.
Oh.
We're looking at Illinois right now. Send us your Illinois stuff because we can put it all in one giant request. We'd like to give one giant request rather than like dozens of individual requests. So we're going after a whole bunch of stuff in Illinois. Let us know what you need. Talk to us soon.
All right.
And as I said
before, Kansas, I'm not sure. Kansas, I'm sure. I apologize. Sorry. Kansas sure has problems, but I don't know what we're doing in Kansas right now. Nothing as far as I know. Sorry.
As we said before, we will definitely be posting links, so you can go to the website, you can read it and take in the relevant information. It gives information about who to contact, how to contact. So, yep, it's got everything on there except basically the kitchen sink.
We'll get the kitchen sink eventually too.
Oh, but Jonathan, seriously, thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I didn't realize. Oh my God, it's like 1 minute to 5. God, this.
I know we blasted through this. This has been fun.
God, this was awesome.
You guys let me go off the hook. Oh, thank you.
So I don't know about the audience, but I feel as though I've come away learning a little something. You made my mouth drop open once, and that doesn't happen very often on this show. So kudos to you for that.
Well, we're very grateful for the opportunity to talk about what we do. None of us get paid for it, so it's a joy when we can have a result and see people interested and see people excited. and just let
Well,
people.
if you ever need to just be on the show for something that you need something, let us know, because we have no
thanks.
problem
I'll keep that in
doing
mind.
that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
We need every avenue of communication, every voice. We need to be speaking the same language about records.
So stay with us when we go offline, because the Zoom will still be up and we can have a chat about the African American things.
Great.
Just wanted to say, please join us next week, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We will be speaking to Yoruba Richin about her documentary, The Negro Motorist's Green Book. Awesome documentary. She's a wonderful documentarian. Hope you guys have enjoyed the show. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Danya?
Yes. And again, Happy New Year early. So, because by the time you guys talk to us again, we'll be into the new year. Stay safe, everyone. Bye.
Bye. See you next Sunday.